there you are. Hey, I hope you're having a great start to your day. First of all, apologize for what happened this morning. Yesterday, my son came up and we got the church iPad loaded to do StreamYard. So this coming Sunday, we'll be streaming the church service to the Full Gospel Facebook page, the Full Gospel YouTube page, and my YouTube page. And that way, better access, more access. And in the process of doing that with the destinations, I had to get a permission to add the Full Gospel page, which is already on here, is on here as well. The Full Gospel YouTube that I'm streaming to right now had to be added on, and then I had to get a permission from the church treasurer secretary, and that all went through. But it's not good for 12 hours, and so even though it was all taken care of yesterday, literally, since I had the from the pray with me for today loaded and ready to go, it said it was not authorized to stream to that, and it just cut it out. So I apologize. Um, can't make up for it. It was just gone. I thought, well, rather than do another, I got that message today at about 9:30, and so rather than do another one, I'll just do it tomorrow and catch up with what we. And I'll just redo what I did today, but I'll do it tomorrow and make it relevant to this morning. All right. Hey, today we're going to be talking about data centers, and I want to do it in the context of end time events and give you something to think about once we get to the end. Okay. So first of all, let me go back to a couple articles. You can go to datacentermap.com and actually look and see the number of global infrastructure data center locations. There are 6,266 global infrastructure locations. You can kind of pull it up on a map, but I'll just show you. This is North and South America. Take my word for that. And then we're going to go this way, and there's Africa, Europe, into Asia. And those red dots represent basically clusters of 100 or more in an area. We know that in the United States of America, in the Midwest, there are 7,556. In the Southeast, 110. In the Texas Panhandle area, there's 502. Out west, they have a whopping 804 of them. So, real quick math, that makes it about a little over 9,000 of them in America. And of course, we know that everybody's just crazy, crazy mad about it, crazy, crazy upset about it. All these things that are going on and happening. And you may say, well, why are you talking about this? Why is this a from the perch thing? Well, first of all, a lot of people that are in smaller communities. Personally know some folks. I got a pastor friend in the Iowa area who had contacted me that they're about 10 to 12 miles from a data center, and in the last couple of months, every water customer in the area has noticed that suddenly their water pressure has dropped to about half of what it was. They've also talked about outrageous electrical costs skyrocketing, going through the roof. So there's another article from Econics, which basically is IT infrastructure group that is putting some things out. They also have an article called "The History of Data Centers and Exponential Evolution." And if you know what exponential means, it's a math term that means something can just multiply, multiply, multiply really, really quick. It's kind of like rabbits. You start with 2, next thing you know, you got 67. And a month later, you got 5,000 rabbits running around, but nonetheless. But this article just has a couple things I want to respond to them. 2 more articles, and then we'll get into why I'm talking about this today, okay? Um, Rapidly changing technology has dictated the design of data center facilities and created many different types of data centers to serve distinct purposes. As data centers have evolved, their benefits and importance have grown rapidly. In the 1940s and 1950s, the computer systems were about as big as your garage and small buildings. Um, the electronic numerical integrator and computer ENIAC for short was completed in late 1945. And his first program, get this, the first computer program in America was the scene for, or the setting for, war games. The first program was a thermonuclear weapon feasibility study. You cannot make this stuff up. Thermonuclear weapon feasibility. So they built this computer for one primary reason, to figure out what would happen with thermonuclear war. Well, if they would have just followed Japan, they would have figured it out pretty quick. The ENIAC was large, weighed 27 tons, occupied 300 square feet of space. Thousands of vacuum tubes, resistors, capacitors, relays, and crystal diodes could only perform numeric calculations, and so all the information, the punch cards, served as the data storage. Imagine that. They did all of that on punch cards. Okay. 60s and 70s, transistor digital computers became a part. The IBM 608 was half the size of a system, but if you wanted an IBM 608, it cost you $83,000 in 1957. And so, even though you had a TV, you didn't have a computer. Okay. There was a guy I knew, his name was Terry Dobson. Terry Dobson had been a manager at IBM back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And in the early 2000s, he came into the office to do some computer work, and he started talking about what he remembers seeing and how he remembers what we would call a flash drive that fits in your, between your fingers. If they had flash drives that were the size of train cars, that would only hold a small amount of data. It goes on to say, throughout the late 1960s, 70s, computers got smaller. Early 81, PCs were first introduced in 1981. Thankfully, a guy named Steve Jobs came up with Apple, and I will stand by my Apple background. Got my first Mac Plus in 1988, which means I've been using Mac computers for almost 40 years. And I will not turn to the dark side for technology. I'm going to stick with the Macs for right now. Early 1990s, PCs started connecting to servers. I've never had a server bring me a drink, take away my plate. Servers don't do what they should have done. 2000, 2010, you had the dot-com bubble. It peaked in March 2000, crashing over the next several years. Many of you remember that. I know people that lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in tech stocks because it all crashed. By 2012, and this is important, 38% of organizations, 40% of businesses, or by 2012, were using cloud services, because cloud service providers needed facilities that allowed them to store rapidly or to scale rapidly while operating costs were minimized. Open Computer Project in 2011 provided best practices, specifications, in developing economical and energy efficient data centers. That's why Zuckerberg and Facebook are very involved in this process. Okay, so this is going to be more like a class lecture. So I hope you understand where we're going with it. But this is good stuff. So the data centers that are out there now do have, and look, let's just face something. In other words, there's a track record of success, because most of you have not lost any data outside of hacking and things like that. But data centers keep growing because there's more and more information. And remember, just about 15 years ago, they said, we're going to go paper free. I have yet to see any business organization that's gone paper free. And every time I see a ream of paper, I think, you're lying to us. But nonetheless, that's another thing. All right, now the next article I want to refer to comes from World Resources Institute. If you want to know how much gold or silver is left in the world, Resources Institute is my go-to place when I want information about the world. And listen to this first line. AI tools like Chat GPT, navigation apps, and streaming platforms, which is what we're on right now, feel effortless, drawing information seemingly from thin air, yet the infrastructure behind them is anything but invisible. Those data centers first emerged in the mid-20th century, proliferated during the 1990s. The internet look, think about this. Where would we be without the internet? We would not have the word Google. We would not have the word bandwidth if those things weren't created. And you can find a lot of maps that show how many global or how many data centers are there. Now, listen to this. I just told you the numbers that are worldwide, okay? There were just over 3,900 data centers across the United States as of late January 2023. Nearly 37% of the world's total, okay? Well, the map I showed you earlier shows that those things have come a long way. Virginia is often described as the data capital center of the world. As a matter of fact, 60% of U.S. data centers are found in 10 states. Number one, 566 are found in Virginia, 391 in Texas, 287 in California. Illinois has 195. Georgia has 195. Ohio has 194. Arizona has 146. New York has 133. Oregon has 121. And Florida has 107. And the biggest issue has been this. A single modern AI data center can use as much power as 100,000 homes. Wow. And many of the larger data centers being built right now, the ones that you folks don't want in your backyard, and there's probably a good reason for that, many of the larger ones are now being built, expect to consume up to 20 times as much energy and electricity. So that's why right now they're saying, hey, I read the article the other day that we're literally there are 7 nuclear reactors short of making sure that the East Coast from Ohio over has enough energy electricity to meet the need by 2027. And you know they're not going to build 7 nuclear reactors in 2 years' time or 1 year time. Another big issue is that most facilities can use up to 300,000 gallons of water per day. Per day. That's a huge water bill. Okay, larger facilities, that was a mid-sized facility. Larger facilities can consume as much as 5 million gallons daily. So that's a pretty big deal. Recent estimates project that by 2028, AI-related data centers could require up to 32 billion gallons of water annually. And they're not making that stuff anymore. You got to remember that. So that 32 billion gallons, that's roughly what 360,000 households would use in a year's time. So the water supplies are a big deal. The air pollution, climate impacts, there's all sorts of concern about that. The mitigating noise. The one friend I told you that basically, you know, he said his water pressure's down. Electricity is going out several times a week. They'll come home from work, come home from church, and all of a sudden, boom, what do they have? Well, the clocks are flashing, which means the power went out. So the noise is also a big deal. Smaller, and because a lot of these places use diesel generators, and they reach 85 decibels. 85 decibels. Now, at Living Word, we had a decibel meter. And the concern we had there was we tried to stay in the 70 range. Now, we didn't always stay there because music flows and, you know, ebbs and flows. But these are going to be using 85 decibels at any given time. Larger industrial units can approach 100 decibels. That's equivalent to a motorcycle or a jackhammer. I got to use a jackhammer one time in college. I did not like it. I was not impressed, and I'm glad I didn't do manual labor for a living. And those that do it, thank God for them. I'm glad they can do it. But this about drove me nuts. I think I bit my tongue off twice, and I had to glue it back on. Another thing is the competition for land that they're doing. Think about how much land is being bought. And we're talking acres and acres and acres. In Wisconsin, about 50 data centers are located. Residents have concerns that rezoning for data center development could accelerate the loss of productive farmland, which is already declining due to development pressure. So water, electricity, now groundwork, land, okay? It's also going to deal with marginalized communities. It's going to deal with housing. A data center that takes up 40 blocks, it's going to take away a lot of housing. You've also got the economic trade-offs. Many times when a business comes to town, they go to the city council or the mayor, and they'll say, "Hey, we want to build a building, but we're going to need to make a line. We're going to need a 4-foot pipe to bring water in. We're going to need this for electric, and we'd like to have some incentives from the community, because we don't want to have to pay all that money for electricity, and then you guys not want us here." And so that's why there's some tax things that go on with cities, counties, and things like that. Now, the question is, what can government do to lessen data centers' impact? All right, this is where we come down to the nitty gritty. Here's what I believe. I know of several places, and some of you do too. I know in Iowa, I know in Illinois, I know in places in Kentucky, they want to build one near Cave City. And man, the people are speaking up. They're like, we don't want one. You see all these signs, no data centers. And the whole thing is, several places where these data centers have gone in, as absolutely opposed to what the people wanted, the local economy said, or the local leadership said, we're going to do this anyway, which was a spit and a slap in the face to the people that live there. And I hope that elections are a reminder. But, okay, big deal. So you elect somebody else. After it's already built and done and going and making all the noise and using all the water, guess what? What are you going to do? Who's going to shut it down? Because at some point and some time, and I believe that all of these data centers are connected somehow, some way. And in that regards, I also believe that data centers, instead of got her done, data done, data centers are going to be an incredible way that banks, the governments, the economies use your financing. And I do not anymore. I'm trying to avoid putting a debit card or a credit card like at gas stations. I'd rather do the tap thing. But even then, you have to wonder what in the world is going on and who's seeing this. And from time to time, when I pay something online, if I got a computer, my phone, or iPad open, I can see how quickly it goes to my bank account. And man, it's instantaneous. And so a lot of the data centers aren't just streaming and um, aren't just for banking; they're for everything. And I want to read something from the book of Daniel, and then I'm gonna talk for a few minutes, and then I'll get off of here. um, Daniel chapter 12, verses 2 and 3. It says, and this is the prophecy of the resurrections, but I want you to understand, Daniel put these two things together. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake, these to everlasting life, but the others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. And that goes back to chapter 12, verse 1, the prophecy of great distress, primarily for Israel, because that's who Daniel is speaking to. But then in verse 3, listen to this. And those who have insight will shine brightly like the brightness of the expanse of heaven. And those who lead many to righteousness, like the stars forever and ever. Daniel is saying there's going to be people out there who know, people who understand what God is saying, understand what he's doing, understand how he wants you to live. Then God speaks to Daniel. He's spoken these final words, and it says, but as for you, Daniel, conceal these words up, and conceal these words and seal up the book until the end of time. Many will go back and forth, and knowledge will increase. I've known some really smart people in my lifetime, people who were worlds above and universes beyond my IQ or my level of thinking, okay? But as we see knowledge increase, as we see these things that are going on, it makes me wonder. The book of Revelation spoke very, very clearly about the mark of the beast. And I want you to think about something. If you lived in the 14 or the 1500s and you became aware because a priest or somebody was talking about the mark of the beast, in the 14 and 1500s, what would you suppose the mark was. What technology beyond the guillotine that was there was what's going to make, what are you going to think about when it comes to the mark of the beast? Go back to the early 1900s. Cars, vehicles, buildings, structures, systems. And someone just mentioned tattoos, and part of that could be looked at that way. But the book of Leviticus, when it talks about tattoos, the reason that that is in there is because most of the people in the pagan cultures would tattoo their bodies in relation to the gods that they served. And that was why God told the people of Israel, don't do this. Don't do those kind of things because it will associate you with the gods. And God did not want to be associated with a cross tattoo or anything else. I'm not against tattoos, please understand that. But he was saying that the identification was with the gods, the pagan gods. Early 1900s, what else would they have been thinking about? What else would they have thought about could be a mark? Because there were no computers, no punch cards in the early 1900s. There was infrastructure things going on. Technology was growing. Computers didn't really start to late 1930s, early 1940s. We know IBM did punch cards in the death camps. We knew that technology was growing. But even now, it makes me think, if in 1900, what would Matthew Henry have said about, or in 1800, what would Matthew Henry have said about the mark of the beast? And what did people see when pastors and preachers taught and preached about these things? What did people see? What did people imagine? What comes to mind? Um, if I say skyscrapers in New York, you're probably going to think about the World Trade Center towers, or you're going to think about the Empire State Building, or you're going to think about things like that. And yes, there was branding and tattoos, but in the 1900s, only some of the crazier, no, not crazier, I shouldn't say it, more than some of the only most of the native tribes in the areas where people didn't go would most likely have put a tattoo on their forehead. Right arm, right hand, right, forehead. They were very busy. But it makes me wonder, folks, those folks could not have, maybe they dreamed about it, thought about it, but no one would have seen a computer or an iPad or a cell phone or a computer. No one saw a billboard like that. Um, so when we think about the mark, we think technology, we think of computers. But it makes me wonder exactly what else it might be that we don't know. Folks, listen, I've got to stop for a minute. If you would pray for Moose, we are seriously having some health issues with her. And we're not sure what it is. Going to be going to the vet tomorrow. It was supposed to do it yesterday. They canceled because the doctor got sick. But we're really, really concerned about Moose. And I'm gonna stop. If you guys don't mind praying with us, right? I'm gonna lay my hands on Moose because she's right beside me. Okay. Father, please touch Moose. Lord, you know what's going on with the scratching, the allergies, the fever. Lord, she's got some very, very hard breathing going on right now, and she needs your touch. She needs your touch. Lord, this dog means the world to me and to us, and I'm asking you to bring healing to her body right now. Let the breathing calm down. Let this allergy, this allergic reaction, whatever it might be, go away. Lord, I came home early from the church to be here to kind of watch this, so just help Moose to feel better. Give that vet tomorrow, Lord. Give that vet tomorrow the ability to understand exactly what's going on and treat her, Lord. Thanking you, praising this for you in Jesus' name. Those of you that know me and us, you know that dog means a lot. And I may even call the vet and see if we can get in real quick. So appreciate your prayers for her. Sorry to interrupt this, but that's kind of where we are right now. And appreciate you watching today. Appreciate listening. And appreciate your prayers for Moose. So, folks, have a good rest of the day. We'll see you in the morning, all right? Hey, God bless.